The wedding photographer posted the most beautiful shot of Ashley in her dress, standing alone by the vineyard's stone archway. The comments flooded in immediately. Absolutely stunning bride. This is what fairy tales are made of. Goals. She looks like a princess. What none of those commenters knew was that 30 minutes after that photo was taken, Ashley Martinez would vanish from our wedding reception, leaving behind only a crumpled note and 200 confused guests. What they also didn't know was that her disappearance would lead me straight into the arms of the one person I never expected to find love with. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning of May 18th started like any other wedding day should. I woke up in my Pearl District loft with butterflies in my stomach and a heart full of hope. After 3 years together, I was finally going to marry the woman I thought was the love of my life. Ashley had been planning this day for months, obsessing over every detail from the blush-colored roses to the vintage string lights that would illuminate our first dance. As the founder of a wedding planning app startup, I appreciated her attention to detail, even when it drove me slightly crazy during those late-night debates about napkin colors. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler, my best friend and best man. "Dude, you ready to become a married man?" I grinned and typed back, "More than ready. See you at the vineyard." What I didn't know was that Tyler had been trying to reach me about something important, something that would change everything. But I was too caught up in the excitement of the day to notice the urgency in his messages. The Willamette Valley vineyard looked absolutely magical that morning. The May sunshine filtered through the oak trees, casting golden light across the rows of grapevines. Our wedding planner, a woman named Carol who had worked with Ashley for months, was bustling around making final adjustments to the ceremony space. The wooden altar was draped in white fabric and surrounded by the blush roses Ashley had insisted on. Everything looked perfect, exactly as we had dreamed. I spent the morning getting ready with Tyler and my groomsmen at the vineyard's bridal cottage. We were joking around, sharing stories about Ashley and me, when Tyler pulled me aside. His expression was serious, which was unusual for him. "Jake, I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how to say this." Before he could continue, Ashley's maid of honor, Jessica, knocked on the door. "The photographer wants to get some shots of the groom before the ceremony," she announced. Tyler's moment was lost in the shuffle of wedding preparations. The guests started arriving around 3 o'clock. I watched from the upstairs window as cars pulled into the gravel parking area. Ashley's parents, Maria and Carlos Martinez, looked radiant as they greeted everyone. My own parents, Robert and Linda Thompson, were mingling with the crowd, their faces beaming with pride. I spotted Ashley's sister Sophia stepping out of her car, wearing a soft lavender dress that complemented her dark hair beautifully. She had always been the quieter Martinez sister, working as a pediatric nurse while Ashley pursued her more glamorous career in event planning. As 4 o'clock approached, I took my position at the altar. The string quartet began playing, and our guests rose to their feet. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle in their lavender dresses, each carrying a small bouquet of white roses. Sophia was the maid of honor, and when she reached the altar, she gave me a warm smile that somehow calmed my nerves. There was something genuine about Sophia that had always put me at ease, unlike her sister who could be intense and demanding. The music changed to the bridal march, and everyone turned toward the back of the ceremony space. That's when I saw Ashley for the first time that day. She looked absolutely stunning in her ivory dress, her dark hair swept up in an elegant updo. Carrying a bouquet of the blush roses she had obsessed over, her father Carlos walked beside her, his face glowing with pride. As they made their way down the aisle, I felt my heart swell with emotion. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. But as Ashley got closer, I noticed something odd. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Instead, she kept glancing around at the guests, at the photographer, at everything except me. When she reached the altar and Carlos placed her hand in mine, her palm was sweaty and she seemed to be trembling. I squeezed her hand gently, thinking she was just nervous. "You look beautiful," I whispered. She gave me a tight smile, but still wouldn't look directly at me. The ceremony began, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. Pastor Williams, who had known both our families for years, spoke about love, commitment, and the journey we were about to embark on together. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Ashley seemed distracted, fidgeting with her bouquet and glancing toward the parking area. When it came time for the vows, she recited the words we had written together, but her voice sounded hollow, like she was reading from a script. After we exchanged rings and shared our first kiss as husband and wife, the guests erupted in cheers. We walked back down the aisle hand in hand, smiling and waving, but Ashley's grip on my hand felt forced. The photographer directed us to various spots around the vineyard for photos, and Ashley went through the motions mechanically. In every picture, her smile looked perfect, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The reception began at 6 o'clock in the vineyard's main hall. The space was transformed with twinkling lights and more of those blush roses. Our wedding cake, a 3-tiered masterpiece with delicate sugar flowers, stood proudly on the center. Tabo the DJ was playing our carefully curated playlist, and guests were mingling and laughing. Everything looked exactly as Ashley had envisioned, but she seemed increasingly anxious as the evening progressed. During cocktail hour, I lost track of Ashley. I assumed she was in the bridal suite, touching up her makeup, or taking a moment to collect herself. When I asked Jessica where she was, she seemed confused. "I thought she was with you," she said, looking around the room. That's when Tyler approached me with a concerned expression. "Jake, we need to talk now." He pulled me aside to a quiet corner of the vineyard. "I've been trying to tell you this all day," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "Yesterday, I was at the downtown Heathman Hotel for a business meeting, and I saw Ashley coming out of the elevator with some guy. They were holding hands, Jake, and it wasn't friendly hand-holding. They were kissing in the lobby. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? It's impossible. Ashley was at her bachelorette party yesterday." Tyler shook his head. "I took pictures, man. I didn't want to believe it either, but I saw what I saw." Before I could process what Tyler was telling me, Jessica came running over, her face pale with panic. "Jake, you need to see this," she said, holding out a piece of paper. "I found this on Ashley's dressing table." My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. In Ashley's familiar handwriting, it read, "I'm sorry, Jake. I can't do this. I thought I could, but I can't live a lie anymore. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Please don't look for me. I hope someday you'll understand and forgive me." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The sounds of the reception, the laughter and music, suddenly felt distant and muffled. I read the note 3 times, hoping the words would somehow change, but they remained the same. Ashley was gone. She had left me at our own wedding reception, surrounded by friends and family who had traveled from across the country to celebrate. With us, that's when I noticed Sophia standing nearby, having overheard the conversation. Her face was stricken with a mixture of shock and what looked like genuine heartbreak for me. Unlike the others who were beginning to whisper and speculate, Sophia's first instinct was to step closer to me. "Jake," she said softly, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was planning this." There was something in her voice, a sincerity that cut through the chaos of the moment, that made me really look at her for the first time. While her sister had abandoned me on what should have been the happiest day of my life, Sophia was still here, still caring about my pain even though her own sister had caused it. The next few hours passed in a blur of awkward conversations and forced smiles. I had to face nearly 200 guests and explain that my bride had simply vanished. Some people offered condolences as if someone had died, while others whispered theories about what might have happened. The worst part was watching Ashley's parents, Maria and Carlos, trying to maintain their dignity while their daughter's abandonment played out in front of their entire extended family. Tyler stayed close to me throughout the evening, fielding questions and helping coordinate the logistics of ending a wedding reception that had barely begun. The catering staff looked confused as they continued serving dinner to guests who were more interested in the drama than the perfectly prepared salmon. The DJ kept the music playing at a respectful volume, but the dance floor remained empty except for a few children who were blissfully unaware of the adult catastrophe unfolding around them. Sophia proved to be invaluable during those chaotic hours. while everyone else seemed paralyzed by the social awkwardness of the situation. She moved through the crowd with quiet efficiency, speaking to relatives, coordinating with the vendors, and somehow managing to keep the evening from completely falling apart. I watched her handle her parents' embarrassment with grace, comforting her mother while simultaneously fielding phone calls from concerned family members who had heard rumors about Ashley's disappearance. Around 10 o'clock, most of the guests had finally departed, leaving behind a reception hall that looked like a beautiful party had been interrupted mid-celebration. The wedding cake sat untouched. The carefully arranged centerpieces seemed to mock the emptiness of the room, and the string lights that had looked so romantic earlier now felt hollow and sad. I found myself standing alone in the middle of the dance floor, still wearing my tuxedo, wondering how my life had changed so dramatically in the span of a few hours. That's when Sophia approached me, having changed out of her lavender bridesmaid dress into jeans and a simple sweater. She looked tired but determined, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the vineyard's kitchen. "I thought you might need this," she said, handing me one of the cups. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of the day settling over us both. "I should have seen this coming," I said finally, more to myself than to her. There were signs, weren't there? She was acting strange for weeks, always on her phone, making excuses about working late. Sophia sipped her coffee thoughtfully before responding. "Ashley has always been impulsive. Even as kids, she would make these dramatic decisions without thinking about how they affected other people. But this is different. This is cruel." I was struck by her honesty. Most people had been tiptoeing around me all evening, offering empty platitudes about how Ashley would surely come back or how everything would work out fine. But Sophia was acknowledging the reality of what her sister had done to me, and somehow that felt more comforting than all the well-meaning lies I had been hearing. The following days were a nightmare of practical concerns. I had to cancel our honeymoon to Hawaii, deal with wedding vendor contracts, and return hundreds of wedding gifts. Ashley's disappearance had created a logistical mess that seemed to require constant attention. Every phone call was a reminder of what should have been the beginning of my married life. The apartment we had shared felt cavernous and empty, filled with reminders of our relationship that now felt like artifacts from someone else's life. Tyler convinced me to take a few days off work, but staying home only made things worse. I found myself obsessing over Ashley's social media accounts, looking for clues about where she had gone or who she was with. Her Instagram account had gone completely silent after that final wedding photo, and her Facebook showed no activity. It was as if she had simply vanished from the digital world as completely as she had vanished from our wedding. On the 3rd day after the wedding, I received an unexpected visitor. Sophia knocked on my apartment door around noon, carrying a bag of groceries and wearing a concerned expression. "I brought lunch," she said simply. "And before you tell me you're not hungry, when was the last time you actually ate something?" I realized I couldn't remember having a real meal since the wedding reception disaster. She moved around my kitchen, with surprising familiarity, preparing sandwiches and soup while I sat at the counter feeling useless and defeated. "You know," she said as she worked, "I've been thinking about something Ashley said to me a few weeks ago. She mentioned that she felt like she was living someone else's life, like she was playing a role that didn't fit her anymore. At the time, I thought she was just having pre-wedding jitters, but now I wonder if she was trying to tell me something more." This was the first real insight I had gotten into Ashley's state of mind before the wedding. Everyone else had been focused on the shock and scandal of her disappearance, but Sophia was actually trying to understand what had driven her sister to such a drastic decision. We talked for hours that afternoon, and I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't expected. "The weird thing is," I admitted, "I keep thinking about all the times over the past few months when Ashley seemed distant or distracted." I told myself it was just wedding stress, but maybe she was already pulling away from me emotionally. Maybe she was already with someone else. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "Ashley has always been good at compartmentalizing. She can put different parts of her life in separate boxes and somehow convince herself that they don't affect each other. Over the following week, Sophia began stopping by regularly. Sometimes she brought food, sometimes she just came to check on me, and sometimes she helped me deal with the endless stream of wedding-related tasks that needed to be handled. I began to look forward to these visits, not just because they broke up the monotony of my self-imposed isolation, but because Sophia brought a sense of calm and normalcy to my chaotic emotional state. During one of these visits, she mentioned that she had been in contact with Ashley through text messages. "She's alive and safe," Sophia told me. "That's about all I can get out of her. She keeps saying she needs time to figure things out, but she won't tell me where she is or what her plans are." I felt a mixture of relief and frustration. Relief that Ashley wasn't in danger, but frustration that she could communicate with her sister while leaving me completely in the dark. "Has she said anything about why she left?" I asked. Sophia hesitated before answering. She keeps talking about how she felt trapped, like she was heading toward a life that wouldn't make her happy. But Jake, the way she's handling this is completely selfish. Whatever she was feeling, she should have talked to you about it instead of humiliating you in front of everyone we know. It was during these conversations that I began to notice things about Sophia that I had never really paid attention to. Before, she had a way of listening that made me feel heard, not just tolerated. When she disagreed with something I said, she did it thoughtfully, without making me feel stupid or wrong. She had a dry sense of humor that could make me laugh even when I was feeling sorry for myself. And, most importantly, she was consistent. While Ashley had always been unpredictable, swinging between intense affection and cold distance, Sophia was steady and reliable. One evening, about 2 weeks after the wedding, Sophia and I were sitting on my apartment's balcony, watching the sunset over the Portland skyline. She had brought Chinese takeout, and we were eating straight from the containers while discussing everything and nothing. "Can I ask you something?" I said suddenly. "Did you ever think Ashley and I were right for each other?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth. "Honestly, I always thought you deserved someone who appreciated you more. Ashley has many good qualities, but she's always been focused on herself first. You're the kind of person who puts others before yourself, and I don't think she ever really understood that about you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just what she said, but the way she said it, with such genuine care and insight. I realized that in all the time I had known Ashley, she had never spoken about me with the kind of understanding that Sophia had just demonstrated. It was a painful realization, but also somehow liberating. 3 weeks had passed since the wedding disaster, when I finally decided to return to work. My startup's office in the Pearl District felt foreign after my extended absence, and my team greeted me with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was developing a wedding planning app while my own marriage had imploded before it even began. Every feature we discussed, every user interface element we designed, reminded me of the elaborate plans Ashley and I had made together. My business partner, Derek, pulled me aside during my first day back. "Listen, Jake, I know this is probably the last thing you want to think about right now, but we have a potential investor meeting next week. Marcus Chin from Chin Development Group has been interested in our app for months, and he's finally ready to discuss funding." The name didn't mean anything to me at the time, but Derek seemed excited about the opportunity. This guy could provide the capital we need to really scale the business. I know the timing is awful, but this could change everything for us. I threw myself into work with an intensity that surprised everyone, including myself. Coding became my escape, a way to focus my mind on logical problems that had clear solutions. Unlike my personal life, which felt chaotic and unpredictable, programming offered a sense of control and accomplishment. I stayed late every night, partly because I was genuinely passionate about the project, but mostly because going home to my empty apartment felt unbearable. Sophia continued to visit regularly, though our interactions had evolved beyond simple welfare checks. She would arrive with dinner and find me hunched over my laptop, surrounded by empty coffee cups and crumpled papers. "You know," she said one evening, settling onto my couch with takeout containers, "there's a difference between healing and hiding." Her observation stung because it was accurate. I was hiding from my emotions by drowning myself in work. Maybe Hiding is what I need right now, I replied, not looking up from my screen. At least code makes sense. Variables have predictable values, functions, return expected results. People, on the other hand, are apparently completely unreliable. Sophia was quiet for a moment, and when I finally glanced over at her, she was studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Ashley sent me another message today, she said carefully. She's asking about you, wants to know how you're doing. I felt my stomach clench with a familiar mixture of hurt and anger. What did you tell her? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. I told her that actions have consequences and that she lost the right to know about your well-being when she abandoned you at your own wedding. The protective edge in Sophia's voice surprised me. She had always been diplomatic when discussing her sister, even when criticizing Ashley's behavior. But something had shifted in her tone, a firmness that suggested her patience with Ashley's. Selfishness was wearing thin. She also mentioned that she's been staying with a friend in Seattle. Apparently, this friend has been very supportive during her difficult time. Sophia's air quotes made it clear what she thought of Ashley's characterization of the situation. A few days later, Tyler came by the office with information that would change everything. Remember how I told you I saw Ashley at the Heathman Hotel the day before your wedding? Said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Well, I did some digging. My cousin works at the hotel, and she was able to check the registration records. The room Ashley was coming out of was registered to a Marcus Chen. The name hit me like a physical blow. Marcus Chen, the same investor who was supposed to meet with Derek and me about funding our startup, the same man who could potentially control the future of my business, was apparently the reason my personal life had imploded. I stared at Tyler, trying to process the implications of what he was telling me. There's more, Tyler continued, his expression grim. I looked him up online. This guy is loaded, owns half the luxury developments in downtown Portland. Get this. He has a history of pursuing married or engaged women. There are rumors about him in the business community, stories about relationships that ended badly because of his interference. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, mechanically going through the motions of work, while my mind raced with questions and suspicions. How long had Ashley been involved with Marcus? Had she been planning to leave me for weeks or months before the wedding? Was our entire relationship a lie? Or had she genuinely loved me before he came along? The questions tormented me, but the answers seemed impossibly out of reach. That evening, I found myself walking aimlessly through the streets of Portland, trying to make sense of what I had learned. Without really planning to, I ended up at Washington Park, where Sophia had mentioned she sometimes went to jog after her shifts at the hospital. The rose garden was beautiful in the late evening light, and I wandered among the flower beds, trying to clear my head. I was surprised to find Sophia sitting on a bench near the center of the garden, still wearing her scrubs from work. She looked up as I approached, and her face showed a mixture of concern and understanding. Rough day? She asked simply. I sat down beside her and told her everything Tyler had discovered about Marcus Chen and Ashley's secret relationship. Sophia listened without interruption, her expression growing more troubled as I revealed the details. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time, staring out at the roses that were beginning to close for the evening. I had wondered, she said finally. Ashley has been different for months, secretive and distracted. She kept talking about meeting new people through work, networking events, and client parties. I thought she was just expanding her business connections. The worst part, I continued, is that this Marcus guy is supposed to be our potential investor. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, and I have no idea how to handle it. Do I confront him about Ashley? Do I pretend I don't know anything? Do I refuse to work with him and potentially destroy my company's future? Sophia turned to face me fully, her dark eyes serious and compassionate. What does your gut tell you to do? She asked. It was such a simple question, but it cut through all the complexity and confusion I had been feeling. My gut told me that working with the man who had stolen my fiancée would be impossible, regardless of the financial implications. My gut told me that some things were more important than money or business success. I think I need to cancel the meeting, I said slowly. I can't sit in a room with him and pretend to be professional when he's the reason my life fell apart. Sophia nodded approvingly. Good. Derek might not understand at first, but there will be other investors. You don't need to compromise your integrity for anyone, especially not for someone who showed so little respect for you personally. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun set behind the trees, casting long shadows across the garden. Being with Sophia felt natural and easy in a way that my relationship with Ashley never had. With Ashley, I had always felt like I was performing, trying to be the kind of boyfriend she wanted, rather than being myself. But with Sophia, conversation flowed effortlessly, and silences never felt awkward or forced. "Can I ask you something personal?" Sophia said as we prepared to leave the garden. "Have you been happy? I mean, really happy in the past few years?" The question caught me off guard, because it forced me to examine feelings I had been avoiding. Had I been happy with Ashley? There had been good moments, exciting times, but had there been genuine contentment and joy? I thought I was happy, I answered honestly. But looking back now, I think I was more in love with the idea of being in love than I was actually in love with Ashley. Does that make sense? Sophia smiled sadly. Perfect sense. Ashley has always been good at creating the illusion of romance. Grand gestures, dramatic declarations, elaborate plans. But real love is quieter than that. Showing up consistently, listening carefully, choosing someone every day rather than just in the big moments. Her words resonated with something deep inside me, a recognition that what she was describing was exactly what had been missing from my relationship with Ashley. Ashley had been excellent at the performance of love, the social media posts and public displays of affection that looked impressive from the outside. But she had struggled with the mundane, daily acts of care and consideration that actually sustained a relationship. Walking Sophia to her car that night, I realized that somewhere during the past few weeks, my feelings toward her had begun to shift. What had started as gratitude for her support during a crisis had evolved into something deeper and more complex. I found myself looking forward to her visits, thinking about her comments long after she left, and noticing details about her that had nothing to do with her relationship to Ashley. The next morning, I called Derek and canceled the meeting with Marcus Chen. I didn't explain the full situation, simply telling him that I had decided not to pursue that particular investor. Derek was frustrated and confused, but he respected my decision. "There are other opportunities," he said, echoing Sophia's words from the night before. "We'll find funding elsewhere." As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of relief and empowerment that I hadn't experienced since before the wedding. For the first time in weeks, I had made a decision based on my own values, rather than external pressures or expectations. It felt like the beginning of reclaiming my life from the chaos Ashley had created. The revelation about Marcus Chen forced me to confront memories I had been avoiding. As I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the framed photos of Ashley, and me that I still hadn't had the courage to put away, I began to piece together a timeline that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Our relationship had started to change around 6 months ago, right around the time Ashley had mentioned landing a major client who was developing luxury condos downtown. She had been so excited about the project, claiming it would establish her reputation in Portland's high-end event planning scene. Looking back now, I could see how her behavior had shifted during that period. She started working later hours, claiming the client was demanding and required evening meetings. She began dressing differently, investing in expensive clothes that she said were necessary for impressing wealthy clients. Most telling of all, she had become increasingly critical of our lifestyle, making comments about how we needed to think bigger, dream bigger, and associate with more successful people. I remembered a specific night when Ashley came home, claiming she'd just wrapped up a dinner with a client. She was wearing a diamond bracelet that caught every bit of light as she moved around our apartment. When I asked about it, she brushed it off casually, saying the client had lent it to her for an upcoming event, so she could look the part. "It's all about image, Jake," she said, almost like it was obvious. "If I don't look successful, why would clients trust me with their high-end events?" At the time, I respected her hustle. I thought it was admirable that she was willing to go the extra mile to establish herself in a competitive field. But now, sitting here with the clarity that only hindsight can bring, I could see it all differently. The bracelet, the sudden wardrobe upgrades, her increasing number of late nights, they weren't signs of business growth. were breadcrumbs pointing to someone else. Ashley hadn't been building a brand. She'd been building a future with a man who could give her the lifestyle she really wanted. One memory hit harder than the rest. 3 months before our wedding, Ashley suggested we postpone our honeymoon to Hawaii. She claimed work was too hectic and that we could go on a bigger, better trip later, someplace even more exotic, she'd said. I was let down, of course, but I admired her dedication and agreed. Now, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had already started checking out. Maybe she couldn't stomach the idea of spending a romantic week with me while secretly falling for someone else. The thought made me nauseous. The idea that she was lying next to me night after night, already halfway out the door, was devastating. My phone buzzed. It was Sophia. "Want some company?" she asked. "Yes," I replied without a second thought. Right. She showed up 20 minutes later, holding a bottle of red and a container of homemade cookies, courtesy of her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "She thinks baked goods fix everything," Sophia said with a tired smile. And honestly, she might be right. We sank into the couch with our wine. I started talking. I told her everything that had been surfacing, how the puzzle pieces were falling into place too late. She listened without interruption, only asking a few gentle questions here and there. Please, she'll just let me process. "What kills me the most," I said, watching the wine swirl in my glass, "is how easily I believed her. Every excuse, every new lie, bought it all because I wanted to. What does that say about me? Was I just blind?" Sophia looked thoughtful, her tone calm but firm. "I think it says you loved her," she said. "And loving someone means trusting them. You gave her the benefit of the doubt because that's what love looks like. She exploited that trust that's on her, not you. Believing her doesn't make you naive. It makes you human." Her words comforted me more than I expected. But they also gave me the nerve to finally ask the question I'd been holding in for weeks. "Can I ask you something uncomfortable?" I said. Sophia nodded, but I saw hesitation in her eyes. "Did you know about Ashley and Marcus?" She stared into her wine like it held the answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and cautious. I knew something was off. She got secretive, avoiding questions, acting like her clients were. "Top secret." She paused, but I never thought she was cheating. Figured maybe she was pulling off some surprise or juggling a stressful job. I wanted to believe the best. Sophia hesitated again before continuing. "There was one time, though," she said, "about a month before the wedding, we were shopping for my maid of honor dress." Her phone kept buzzing, and I noticed her smiling at her screen like it was personal. I asked, and she said it was just a vendor. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. I couldn't tell if I felt betrayed or just sad. She met my gaze directly. Her answer was honest and heavy. "Because I didn't have proof. Because accusing my sister of cheating on you would have shattered everything, even if I was right." And she stopped. "And what?" I pressed gently. She took a sip of wine, bracing herself. "Because I've been in love with you for 2 years. Jake," she said, and I was terrified that if I said anything, it would sound like jealousy, not concern. The world tilted for a second. I stared at her, stunned, trying to absorb the weight of what she'd just shared. While I had been planning a wedding with her sister, Sophia had been carrying this secret, standing by me through everything, quietly nursing her own feelings. 2 years? I asked softly. She nodded, cheeks flushed. "Remember that night you and Ashley fought about moving in together? Yeah. You came to dinner at our parents' house? We ended up talking on the porch while Ashley sulked inside," I remembered. That night, I'd felt seen for the first time in months. Sophia and I had talked about everything: our careers, childhood memories, dreams we never voiced. It had been one of the most genuine conversations I'd had in a long time. Back then, I chalked it up to Sophia being kind and Ashley being dramatic. Now, I saw it differently. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Sophia gave a sad smile. "Because you were with my sister. Because I didn't want to be the one to blow up your relationship, even if it wasn't perfect." You looked happy. Her words cut deep, but they also revealed everything I needed to know about her priorities. Before I could even respond, there was a knock at the door. I glanced through the peepholes. Sophia stood in the hallway, holding what looked like a container of soup. She'd started a quiet tradition of bringing me dinner on Thursdays, claiming she was trying out new recipes. But we both knew she just didn't want me relying on takeout in silence. Ashley must have seen my face change, because when I looked back, her expression had shifted. Colder, sharper, she said, voice edged with something venomous and familiar. Now it all makes sense. How convenient. I opened the door, and Sophia stepped inside. She froze when she saw her sister sitting on my couch. The contrast between them was almost theatrical. Sophia, in her wrinkled scrubs, tired but real, like someone who had just spent the day helping sick kids. Ashley looked like a magazine spread flawless, posed, calculated. Ashley, Sophia said, calm and unreadable. I didn't know you were back. Ashley stood and smoothed her dress like she was reclaiming lost ground. Just got in, came to talk. To Jake, about our future? Sophia's jaw tightened, just barely. Your future? She repeated, glancing between us. You mean the one you walked away from 6 weeks ago when you left him standing alone at your wedding reception? Ashley flinched at that. Her mask slipped just enough to show the resentment underneath. I don't need a lecture from you, Sophia. She snapped. You've always been jealous of what Jake and I had. I guess you saw your chance when I made a mistake. Sophia gently set the soup down on the counter, her hands slightly shaking, though her voice stayed steady. What you had was a relationship where Jake bent himself to fit your expectations, while you quietly plotted an escape route with someone else, she said, and believe me, was never jealous of how you treated him. Ashley's face went pale, then red with anger. And then, all at once, her carefully constructed exterior crumbled. Marcus ended it, she said suddenly, the words tumbling out. Said I was too much drama. Said I was fun in hotel rooms, but not worth a real relationship. He left, and now I have nothing. There was pain in her voice, real pain. And for a moment, I felt it. I knew what rejection like that felt like. But the feeling passed quickly, replaced by clarity. She wasn't here because she missed me. She was here because her backup plan had fallen apart. So you came back to me, I said quietly, hoping I'd be your safety net. Ashley blinked fast, tears finally breaking through. We had 7 years together, Jake, she said. That has to count for something. We can fix this. Counseling, whatever it takes. I made a mistake, but I still love you. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. You didn't make a mistake, Ashley, I said. You made 100 conscious decisions. You lied. You cheated. You humiliated me. Those weren't slip-ups. They were choices. And now I finally see what I meant to you. A placeholder until something shinier came along. Ashley cried then, not quietly or gracefully, but like someone who had just lost control of a carefully written script. Behind me, Sophia stood silently, a quiet presence at the edge of the storm. In that moment, I understood. This was love. Not flashy or manipulative, but real. Solid, safe. Someone who showed up. Someone who saw me, not my potential. I can't go back, Ashley, I said. Much has changed. I've changed. And honestly, I hope you find peace. But I'm not part of that story anymore. Ashley's eyes darted between the two of us. The realization hit her slowly, visibly. Fine, she said, gathering her things and smoothing her hair, like it gave her power. But this thing with Sophia, it won't last. She's always lived in my shadow, and she always will. You'll come crawling back. She paused in the doorway, one last dagger held between her teeth. We could have had everything, Jake. I hope she's worth throwing that away. Then she was gone. The door clicked shut, and for a long moment, the apartment was silent. Then Sophia spoke, her voice soft. Are you okay? I turned to her, took her trembling hands in mine, and smiled for real this time. I'm better than okay, I said. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I kissed her gentle certain and in that moment, I stopped wondering what could have been and started looking forward to what would be. 6 months later, we were married. It's just a small ceremony in the rose garden where we'd had our first honest conversation. No fanfare, No forced perfection. Just close friends, family, and vows we wrote ourselves. I saw Ashley there, sitting quietly with her parents. She didn't cause a scene, didn't say a word. Our eyes met briefly across the rows of chairs, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or regret, just gratitude, because her betrayal had led me here, to this quiet joy, this quiet strength, to Sophia, to love that stayed. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.